Hi, we're going to be talking about my labs today. Well, sort of, not in like detail, but I want to just, I often get a lot of questions about blood work or what you should have your doctor ask you. Hello California. I hope you're okay out there. And I wanted to go over just what tests you did run, because I think sometimes you want to know specific things. And the thing with lab work is that you need to go through a doctor to get it done, right? And oftentimes, even if you do your own, kind of figure out, you just want to know, right? You just want to know where you stand with your lab work. Fortunately, I have a doctor that's, as I said yesterday, she's part of the Physicians for Ancestral Health. And that's really cool. So she was really knowledgeable on cholesterol, and I really want to talk about how she explained cholesterol to me. I get a lot of questions from people asking me about their cholesterol, and normally I'm like, go elsewhere. I don't know how to explain that to you. But I just learned, she has a really good analogy. Look, I made notes. I took notes with my appointment. I was like, hold on, doc, let me write this down. And I just want to relate to you this analogy that she showed me for cholesterol, because it's a really common thing, especially when you move from standard American diet that tends to be low fat, high carb, to even just paleo, where you're eating a lot more saturated fat, animal fats, grass-fed butter, red meat, things like that. And unfortunately, it's still this like crazy debate on, saturated fat and animal fats and cholesterol and heart health and all that is still raging in the mainstream medical communities. And that's hard, because I think that the last 50 years of, low fat, high fiber, heart healthy, that's what they've been drilling into us. However, if you look at the data, we're sicker than ever. So obviously that advice wasn't working. And if we go to pre that advice, we realize, we were doing pretty good. So, you read books like Michael Pollan, The Omnivore's Dilemma, The Big Fat Surprise, things like that. And you're like, oh man, we used to eat a lot of saturated fat. Like, when did it become the enemy? And a lot of us would argue, of course, a lot of that has to do with, the corruption of the food industry. So let's get into the nitty gritty. I'm going to go over 3 things today. 3 main things that she explained to me, which of course have to do with my health. So we're going to go over cholesterol numbers. 2, we're going to go over omega-3 to omega-6 ratios and the importance of that, and then some tips on how to get those ratios right. And the 3rd thing I'm going to explain is some thyroid stuff that she explained to me, because spoiler alert, I do have some thyroid issues going on, which is a new development. I have not had a diagnosis in the thyroid department yet. So I've had my suspicions, but the first time a doctor is like, this is what's going on. So first, talking about cholesterol. I get a lot of people who freak out because their cholesterol got a lot higher on keto. And it's really scary, because it's still very, very prevalent in a lot of doctors and stuff. They're going to say high cholesterol is bad. And of course, there's the HDL and the LDL, and the HDL is the good cholesterol and the LDL is the bad cholesterol. But from my understanding, it's really just it doesn't measure, it's a way to measure cholesterol. It's not exactly your cholesterol. So, what she explained to me is that HDL, she actually wants me to eat more saturated fat, which is interesting. She says that while the lab results themselves say the optimal range for HDL is lower than 50, she wants my HDL 60 or higher, and mine was actually at 58, so she wants it higher. So she was like, you need to eat more saturated fat. The saturated fats are going to be your solid fats that are solid at room temperature. Think coconut oil, grass-fed butter, tallow, duck fat, like animal fats or saturated fats. And then I think coconut oil is the only like plant-based saturated fat. So she's like, more of those. You need more of those in your diet because you want to raise that HDL. And then my LDL, which by all intents and purposes from the lab work was high, she said, no, your HDL's fine. So the way she explained it is this. HDL is like a basket of fruit, with grapefruit and oranges being the big LDL, which is a big, fluffy, healthy LDL. Lemons and limes being, and then think of the lemons and limes as being rotten. And so the small LDL, that small, hard LDL, that's what's going to cause that buildup in the arterial wall. Those are lemons and limes. So it's the small LDL. So if you have a big basket of LDL, right, which would, let's say, is an analogy for higher LDL number. So if you think of the basket size as the LDL number, but if your basket is full of oranges and grapefruit, so in your big basket, you only have 100 pieces of fruit. And because your big basket is full of grapefruits and oranges, but maybe has a few small rotten lemons and limes, still you have good LDL, because that means that in your big basket, you only have 100 particles, which means that it's full of the good LDL, which is the big fluffy kind. So that's why the overall number isn't as important as the particles. And so they did test that. Not only did when they tested my cholesterol, they did, right, I'm going to get to that. She does talk about triglycerides. So total cholesterol, LDL, like LDL total, HDL total, triglycerides. And she did say that triglycerides, while most people say, like conventional doctors will say under 150 is good, she does prefer them under 60. So you do want to watch your triglycerides. But then you also want to have them test for not just LDL, but you want to have your doctor test for LDLP, which is the number of particles. It actually like the actual number. And so what you want to look at is that if you divide the number of particles by your total LDL, it shouldn't be more than 10 times. And that goes back into the basket analogy. A big basket, high LDL, full of grapefruits and fruit, big LDL, with very little lemons and limes, small LDL, still means that you have that healthy LDL, which is the big fluffy one, which is the one you want. If you have a smaller basket, a lower LDL number, but it still has 100 pieces of fruit in it, which means that you have more lemons and limes and not as many grapefruits and oranges. So what you really want to look at is the particle size. And so with me, my particle size was fine. So, you divide the LDLP by your total LDL and you want it to be less than 10. And so the LDLP number is what you really want to look at, and your LDL, and then divide. And then remember, less than 10. So it's about the number of particles, because if you have a lot of particles, even in a little number, that means that you have a lot of small LDL, and it's the bad kind. It's the small compact one. And that's what's and it's not that it blocks the artery. It's actually in the arterial wall. Like, let's say this is the artery, then this is the wall, and it gets in the wall and kind of like makes it grow that way. So that was really interesting to me. And I had never seen it like explained that way. Even in the keto space. And I was like the fruit basket analogy. So second thing, so when you get your cholesterol test, remember to have your doctor not just ask for LDL and HDL, but also triglycerides and LDLP, which is the particles. You want to know that. Okay, and then another thing we want to look at is, she did tell me I need to have more vitamin D, and I think that that's something important, especially with winter coming. So I've ordered a supplement of vitamin D with K. And then she had me tested for my omega-3 fatty acids and my omega-6 fatty acids. And let me tell you, I eat like all the good fats. I take an omega-3 supplement, so I thought I would be like totally fine. I'm not. You usually want your omega-3 to omega-6 1-to-1 ratio at least. Ideally 3-to-1 ratio, being more omega-3 than more omega-6. And the reason for this, and she was very proud of me that I knew this because I just learned this in school. So the reason for that is this. our body, every cell in our body, every tissue in our body creates prostaglandins, right? And it's a hormone-like substance that if we get hurt, if you get a bruise, a scrape, or whatever, it causes inflammation. So there's 3 types of prostaglandins. PG1 and PG3 are the inflammatory, and then PG2 is the anti-inflammatory, if I'm not mistaken. It might be the other way around. And so these prostaglandins, like, that's how our body heals. When there's a trauma, first the inflammation shows up to like protect the area, and then anti-inflammatory prostaglandin comes to finish healing it. So we need these functions, and this is why I don't take NSAIDs, because it blocks that function. So our body on its own has this amazing healing capability where not only, yes, it can, the inflammation is initial as for protection, but it has its own anti-inflammatory properties, right? And we need both. We need inflammation to heal, and we also need the anti-inflammatory. So you don't want to have too much omega-6, because omega-6 is the pro-inflammatory prostaglandin. And so if you have too much of that, you're going to have too much inflammation and then not enough of the anti-inflammatory prostaglandin. So you need to have a good ratio. Ideally, it'd be equal. So omega-3, anti-inflammatory, omega-6, pro-inflammatory. And you don't want to have an omega-6 deficiency, because you still need the pro-inflammatory prostaglandins for healing, but you don't want to have too much, or like an abundance. You don't want it to be dominant. And I'm still dominant in the omega-6, which, crazy, like I said, I take all the supplements. So what I'm going to do is pretty much, she's like, don't eat fats, don't eat fats from plants. She's like, all your fats need to come from like solid fats, the saturated fats, and you need to have a lot more fish in your diet. And it's true, I could eat more seafood, because I've been kind of slacking on the seafood. So we had salmon last night for dinner, and I bought wild mackerel and olive oil. Oh, also, olive oil is an omega-9, so it won't really mess your omega-3 to omega-6 ratios. But granted, you don't cook with olive oil, because it has a low smoke point. It rancidifies easily. So you want to finish your food with olive oil. But so pretty much, if I cook, I'm going to cook only with saturated fats, and then finish my meals off with olive oil. And then it's interesting, because avocado oil is a monounsaturated fat, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to just reduce my use of, I think, avocado oil, and just try and focus on the saturated fats. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Pork and chicken are higher in omega-6, and that's something that I did tell her. I do eat a lot of chicken. So what I'm going to do also is focus on eating red meat from grass-fed. It has to be grass-fed, which I do anyway, because I get butcher box. And then, so I'm going to focus on eating grass-fed beef and seafood, and lower my intake of chicken and pork, which are higher in omega-6. I just really, really like chicken thighs. Damn it. Anyway, I also bought these, so this is a really good way. So you can get wild mackerel and olive oil, and super high in omega-3. Also, I bought these, and these I got at Safeway. Smoked wild kippers and herring. She's like, I just eat 3 cans of herring a week, and it keeps my omega-6, my omega-3 high. And I'm like, okay, well, I just went straight to the store and bought a bunch of, I'm like, I can do wild herring and eat it, canned wild herring to get my omega-6 up. So that was really interesting. I mean, I know this. I just assumed that my levels were okay, because I take the omega-3 and I eat all the good fats, but I really have to watch it. And I told her, I think I don't use seed-based oils. So I really think that my omega-6 being higher mostly comes from maybe too much poultry in my diet, which is crazy. Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, if you don't like the smelly fish like these, I feel like I might have to do one of those just to get it in. I don't know. I haven't tasted it yet. Honestly, I've never had this. But you can do salmon. Salmon's really good in omega. Or you can do I've been taking the fish oil capsules, but the thing about supplements, sometimes supplements are a little difficult because of the bioavailability in them. It's so hard. Like, obviously, food in its whole state is always going to be more effective and better for like absorption. Yes, I do have an amazing doctor. Finally, the first time in my life. Okay. The last thing we covered that was like a red flag for her was my thyroid, which, granted, my numbers per the lab were in normal ranges, but not for her. She's like, these are ranges that it's so slightly off that like a conventional doctor wouldn't catch this. And this has happened to me before where it's like, this is a little low, but it's fine. But this is the way, hold on, she did a little drawing for me. Where to go? Look, I love her. She's so cute. So this is the way she explained it to me. Your brain creates TSH, right? And then it goes to the thyroid that then creates T4, and then that goes to T3, and that's like what, the conversion, and then you get energy, right? Because that's pretty much what the thyroid does. The thyroid like regulates energy in the body, and like regulates your metabolism. And so what is happening in my body, a lot of people have like a thyroid issue, so they don't convert to T4, and then this all gets messed up. But what my problem is, my TSH is fine, my thyroid is fine, my T4 is fine. What's happening in my body is that instead of T4 converting to T3, it's going to reverse T3. So there's like this connection. This should be the ideal path. It's not happening. It's like segueing into reverse T3. And the thing with reverse T3 blocks free T3. And so free T3 is great. It's what like gets your metabolism going, gets your body creating energy, using your calories efficiently. But reverse T3 blocks that. And so this is going to cause, they often say this can be caused by stress. She wrote it, stress. And so I have an elevated reverse T3 and a low free T3. God, that's hard to say. And so she's like, I'm not exactly sure why that's happening. They say that can happen through stress. And what she did is she prescribed me not a thyroid supplement, but she prescribed me actual T3. And I read a lot of articles online, and that's like what people do. They just start taking T3 to fix that balance. But she did tell me, she's like, if you want to do your own research before you start taking it, go for it. And I told her, give me the prescription, and I still do my own research, and at least I have it at home. And then what I did is I called, or I Instagrammed my friend Becky Campbell, Dr. Becky Campbell, who wrote the 30-day thyroid reset. And Becky confirmed that yes, elevated reverse T3 with lowered free T3, I have such a hard time saying that, is often caused by stress. And the stress can come from two things: a liver dysfunction, or small intestine bacterial overgrowth, or a gut dysbiosis of some sort. So actually, Becky, we just ordered, I talked to Becky, and through her practice, we're going to do a gut map, and we're going to do a SIBO, a small intestine bacterial overgrowth check, like a test. I already take liver, like helpful liver stuff. And I've also decided that in the meantime, because I kind of been like, until I get it'll be like 6 weeks, and with the holidays even more, until I get the results back from the gut test. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to take the T3 medication for now, along with implementing liver support stuff like celery juice in the morning when I wake up. And I'm taking calcium deglutarate, and I'm going to keep taking, what is the other one I take? I forget, another supplement. And I also take iodine, which of course also helps with thyroid functions. So that's really interesting. But the lowered T3, free T3, and elevated reverse T3 it causes fatigue, like unstable energy. It causes like weight, like it slows down your metabolism. It makes it really hard. It makes it hard to lose weight, which I'm like, oh yeah. I was very satisfied with the appointment with my doctor. And like I said, she's a physician for Ancestral Health, and you can find them online. If you Google Physicians for Ancestral Health, they have a website and I think a directory where you can find other doctors like this. But the most, I think, important thing was her cholesterol information, and how, having a doctor be aware of the newest, the most relevant cholesterol information, and even looking at my numbers and saying, well, you're keto, so this is normal for you because of your diet. I'm like, oh, you're the best. So yeah, that's going over my labs. LDL cholesterol, and why the number isn't as important as much as the number of particles. and we covered omega-3 to omega-6 ratios and why they're important, and also tips on how to fix those ratios. And then the last thing we covered was the thyroid. Yeah, so I'll report back. I'm going to get a follow-up appointment in January, so in 2 months, and get my thyroid tested again. And I will see where we are, but I'm excited to finally getting some answers in like those little things that I'm kind of like, I do all the right things. Like, why isn't like it better? Like, I know I've improved so much, but I'm always on that road to optimizing my life and my diet more and all that. That might not be the case for you. Obviously, I'm someone with autoimmune disease and all this stuff. But you know, my mother has Hashimoto's, and it's also really interesting that my thyroid numbers are slightly off, not super crazy. But I always think, what if I didn't eat the way I did or live the way I did? I would probably maybe develop like severe thyroid issues. So, right? You always got to think of the silver lining. Oh yeah, it's so worth it. I'm so excited I'm getting answers. Yeah, all good things, and I will keep you guys posted. And that's the door. I gotta go. Bye.